Good evening. To call this meeting of the Grafton Finance Committee to order. We have members remote this evening, Angelina and Nick, and in person, Skip, Victoria, and Greg Marr. Start with some announcements. Victoria?
Yeah, thank you so much. I just wanted to cordially invite everyone from the town of Grafton to attend the Grafton Master Plan Working Group community event that's occurring on October 9th from 6 to 8 at the Grafton High School Common, i.e. the cafeteria. This is an opportunity for everyone from the town to come and voice your opinions, your wants, needs, desires, concerns about the strategic plan for the next 10 to 20 years of Grafton. 19th. Oh, what did I say? 9th. Oh, I'm so sorry. October 19th. So glad that Colleen is here to keep me straight. October 19th, thank you, between 6 and 8. We'll be able to cover kind of every wide-ranging topics. You'll be able to address things like where should we expand sidewalks? How can we improve commercial corridors? How can we expand lake access? To everything in between. And also to let everyone know that there is also going to be pizza, salads, and activities for kids. So bring your appetite, your opinions, and your whole family. And we can't wait to see you there. So thank you so much.
All right, thank you. We now also have Kyle joined us remotely.
Hey, everybody.
Hey.
All right. So pursuant to Article 2, Section 2-3 of the Grafton Town Charter and Article 3 of the Town Bylaws, the Finance Committee will hold public hearings to permit public discussion of the subject matter of all articles contained in the warrant prepared for the fall town meeting to be held Monday, October 16th, 2023. These public hearings will take place in Conference Room A of the Grafton Memorial Municipal Center located at 30 Providence Road, Grafton, Massachusetts, beginning at 7 p.m. on the following dates: September 20th, September 21st, and September 25th, 2023. Remote participation will be available via Zoom webinar. The link to the webinars will be posted on each Finance Committee meeting agenda. Interested citizens are invited to attend these meetings in Conference Room A. The other two meetings will actually be in Conference Room F, or via Zoom to offer comments. Posted on the Town Bulletin Board and in the Grafton News, September 7th and September 14th, 2023. Entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Seconded?
Any discussion? All right, roll call vote. Angelina?
The simple thumbs up will do.
I saw her mouth move.
Sorry. Yes. Hi.
Kyle?
Hi.
Nick?
Hi.
Heather?
Aye.
Skip?
Aye.
Victoria?
Aye.
And Greg votes aye. Declared motion carried unanimously. All right, welcome to everyone. Up first, we are going to have the Parks and Cemetery Department speaking on Article 55.
Good evening.
Good evening.
You're talking.
Oh, I'm talking. Oh, all right. Well,
I'm here for the accompaniment.
oh, thank you very much. So pretty much what we're going to propose here is that we withdraw some funds from the cemetery perpetual care accounts. We would like to do some paving in some of our cemeteries and some of the more hazardous areas. So we are looking to actually withdraw about $75,000 from the accounts. About $25,000 from each cemetery's perpetual care accounts for just road improvements.
Okay. Does anyone from the committee have any questions? More procedural question. Do we need a destination account for these, or is this money just going to be spent directly from those accounts? I guess that's a question for Mary.
Yes, I believe that they're going into a capital account.
Okay, and that'll be part of the motion?
Yeah, I'll work with William on that.
Yep,
Okay.
that's the intent, is to put it as part of the motion.
Okay. All right, any further questions on Article 55? All right, you're also here to do sewer commissioners?
Yep, and there's two other DPW.
Yeah. So we have up next sewer commissioners 61 and 62.
So it's just moving money from typical article we see at most meetings, moving money from retained earnings just to cover unexpected expenses that you can't plan for during the regular O&M budget season.
Yeah, and this is all money that has come in from
From sewer use fees,
Yep.
correct. Yeah.
Okay. Any questions from the board on either article? Okay. And then DPW also has 63 and 64.
So those articles, the select board voted to lay out Jonkers Terrace and Waterville Circle as the first step in making them public ways. So this, in order to design those, we have it, the meets and bounds have been done. So in order to make them public ways, we need to design them as such. So in the design process, there possibly will be takings, either temporary or permanent, for utility relocations, or just alignment of the road to make it straighter or curved or however it needs to be. So this just authorizes us, needing town meeting authorization to have the select board take those parcels.
Okay. Any questions from the board? No? Okay, that was nice and simple. Guess that is all we have for you guys tonight. Thanks.
Excellent.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and guess we'll now move on to Planning Department, Article 46 through 51.
Hello, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for having me. Fiona Coughlin, Town Planner. I think I've met most folks last time I was in front of you for the Maytown meeting, but nice to see you all again. So for Article 46, it might be easier to share my screen, but I do at some point, but I just wanted to preface this by saying this article is an amendment to our existing zoning map. The town of Grafton must comply with the new Section 3A Chapter 48 Mass General Law, becoming an MBTA community. To accompany the updated zoning, which is a later article that I'll be talking about, we do need to update our zoning map, and that is what this article is for. We are doing symbolizing a overlay district with 5 sub-districts that we will be that will designate the areas that we're using for compliance. So I'm happy to show that map if that's something the committee would like to see.
Yep. Do we need to enable that?
Yep. Okay. So sorry for the small text. Can you all see that? Somewhat.
Somewhat.
Well, we can see it, but which part are we supposed to be seeing?
Yeah.
Sure. Yep. So I was just getting to that point. So yes, the new overlay district will be symbolized through green symbology here, and it'll be labeled MBTA Communities Overlay District. And then we are using the following areas. MCMOD 1, which is the 8 Pine Street site, or North Grafton 40R, 5 Millennium Drive, which is designated as our MCMOD 4, the Village Mixed Use Gateway Zone here, which includes 23, 25, and 17 and 27 Upton Street. I believe that's all of them. And that is designated MCMOD 5. And South Grafton, sorry, the PDF isn't showing this correctly. But we are using a portion of the Village Mixed Use South Grafton zone, which will be designated as MCMOD 3. Let me see if I can pull up a better map for this. There's so many data layers on the map. It's probably overwhelming the program. So this is Village Mixed Use South Grafton, I'm sorry, that will be MCMOD 2, and then we'll be using our Fisherville Smart Growth 40R district in South Grafton for compliance as well, and that will be MCMOD 3. So 5 sub-districts all designated by an overlay. We tried our best to work with CMRPC, our consulting team, to make sure that the symbology was something that folks could see, but also not be too overwhelming. So that is that article 46. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions from the committee on 46?
Is this the same thing that Holden's fighting?
Yes, it is. Yes.
I guess like a high level, the implications of this change.
Sure. So, so the change, this is really kind of a complementary warrant article to the draft MBTA community zoning that I'll be talking about in a second. So Grafton is what's Grafton is what's called an adjacent community. So we were designated by the state.
Yep.
As that was our designation. So we are not required to provide the minimum 15 units per acre by right in town around the train station, but we do need to provide it throughout town, of course. And so what we did was we focused on areas where the town is already prioritizing high density development and growth. So we basically use these 5 areas for compliance. We ran our model with our CMRPC, which is our regional planning agency team. All of the numbers shook out very well, and basically Grafton had almost no changes to the underlying zoning to comply with this new law, which was pretty nice for me selfishly, but there's some other communities like Holden, for example, that definitely will probably have a lot more significant zoning changes than us. The only change, and I'll get into this at the next article, but the only change that the town really required was lowering the affordability threshold for that portion of the Village Mixed Use South Grafton zone right here that we're using, because the state will not allow any communities to have a higher affordability threshold than 20%. So we had to reduce that from 25 to 20.
Okay. Thank you for walking through that. I appreciate it.
Sure.
It's interesting that we have to make it less affordable to comply with the
Right. Yeah. I think the state was thinking, try to remove any barriers to actually getting this density that they want. So, they really were kind of pushing more in the ballpark of 10%, but obviously affordable housing is a huge priority for the town of Grafton, and we don't want to reduce it any more than we need to. So that was that was the background of that. And this map here is just basically to codify the changes, and it always complements a zoning change.
Okay. Anyone else on any committee have any questions at this point? All right. So that takes care of 46. Okay. We can go on to 47.
Sure. So I did provide some background already about MBTA community zoning. So the map is, as I mentioned, going to accompany the proposed zoning bylaw change. We are adding a section 14 to our zoning bylaw, which will be entitled MBTA Communities Multifamily Overlay District. The language is quite short because, as I mentioned, the town really did not have any significant changes to the underlying zoning that was required to comply. We start with a purpose section, which basically outlines what the district is trying to accomplish through the new law, and reiterates that the town of Grafton is essentially using the underlying zoning in 4 of the 5 sub-districts, and is basically only making a change in that Village Mixed Use South Grafton portion of the map. From there, we speak to the establishment and applicability. So basically just underscoring the land area that that is superimposed over the zoning districts that's shown on the map, and which districts are established for compliance. From there, it's really more. I don't want to read it all off to you and bore you to tears, but I'm happy to continue to go through. So the underlying zoning, again, just a reiteration that the underlying zoning is governing in most of the districts, and we have a definitions section that most of this text, I should say, and apologies for not starting with this, is language that the state themselves drafted that we have incorporated into our bylaw. So we worked with CMRPC, our regional planning agency, and the state to draft this language as it is. And these sections that are outlined within this warrant article are all requirements and requirements/recommendations from the state to include. So we really took the sample language and the sample bylaw that they had put out for communities, Graftonized it, and put it in a warrant article, basically. So just continuing on, again, permitted uses, what obviously minimum 15 units an acre of multifamily by right is the key here. Folks will not need to be applying for a special permit through the planning board to get that minimum density. They can get that minimum density now without any additional regulatory bodies having to weigh in. We do have the site plan review that will stay intact, but that's just for purposes of public safety and access, and just making sure that those basic conditions are met. Affordability, as we mentioned, we're sticking to the 20% because that's as high as we can get with the law, that they won't let us go any higher. So that is that. And then the rest is space severability and basic state text. But I think it might be more effective for me to answer any questions, and we can hone in on any specific section if that's agreeable to the chair, because there's a lot of language here.
Okay. Do we have questions for Fiona at this point?
I have one question that Mr. Robbins is probably better able to handle. The severability clause, did they use the same severability clause that we recommended going to in our meetings?
The severability clause is the language from the state.
Yeah, what Skip is referring to is in the general bylaws. We're sort of prematurely talking about that, but there's a relevance there. You know, the general bylaws, we found a number of different sections of the bylaws that had severability clauses, and then they were all written differently. So what we did with the general bylaws is coalesced all that into a single definition, which is totally separate from the zoning bylaw. And off the top of my head, I don't remember. I think I looked at it not long ago, but I don't remember what I saw. The structure of the zoning bylaws is a little bit different. I think we actually have a clause in the first part of the zoning bylaw that applies to the entire bylaw. So at worst, this severability clause in this particular warrant article may be redundant. Now, they're all worded differently, but they all tend to mean the same thing. You know, there's many different ways to specify severability. It just depends on where you got the text from.
Okay.
Thanks, Dave.
Are there any other questions from the rest of the committee? I have 14.6.1.
Yes.
It looks like there's some in-process text in there. It says this requirement applies to all residential mixed-use developments with 10, and then in brackets 8 if we're going with 20% affordable or more dwelling units. Is that something that's supposed to be changed before it goes in?
Yeah, I will work with the planning board to adjust that at our meeting on the 25th when we which will be our hearing on the warrant articles, and we can amend that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions on Article 47? And also, if there's anyone in the public that has any questions at any time, then just raise your hand and you can be recognized. All right. So let's go to Article 48.
Sure. So, Article 48 is focusing on an amendment to Section 13 of our zoning bylaw, which pertains to our North Grafton Transit Village Overlay District, which is essentially 8 Pine Street. When the zoning was originally drafted, there was a reserved section for what's called a subzone B. So the way that the zoning is structured currently is that there is the Section 13, and then there's subzone A, which is Pine Street, and then there's subzone B, which was reserved. So through this warrant article, we are proposing to include language for a subzone B with all associated parameters, and this will pertain specifically to 5 Millennium Drive. So the language, basically, this was reviewed by the state as well, and we did receive comments back. Well, we did receive an initial set of comments back in 2019 when the Section 13 was first reviewed by the state, which we incorporated here, as well as an additional set of comments from the state with initial feedback. So yes, the sub-zone or sub-district is outlined within. We have specific definitions and standards. Most of that is unchanging. A lot of the changes that at least you see initially is purely like perfunctory. For example, like DHCD is no longer DHCD. They are Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. So that those types of things, some minor grammatical adjustments at the beginning, and then we get into the establishment of the district, which outlines where this will be located, the parameters, which align directly with the 5 Millennium site. Something to note before I continue on is that this application for a 40R, they had approached the town several months ago. They were debating on, the owner of the site was debating on what they were going to do. They ultimately decided to go with a 40R, and a 40R was definitely satisfactory in our minds, because not only will this create much needed housing for the town of Grafton, it'll also promote density in an area that's right near the train station, at a site that's been historically very, very difficult to develop, as well as providing added benefits like bonus payments to the town through the 40R program, and then 20% of those units will count toward our subsidized housing inventory. So that was a little bit of how we got here. This has also gone through a variety of reviews and iterations, not only by the planning board, but also the select board did vote to send the formal 40R application to the state in July. As drafted, at this time, we are still waiting for the letter of preliminary approval from the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. We cannot go to town meeting without it. I submitted this as a placeholder in hopes that the state will get us their comments and their letter very soon. So that's where we're proceeding with, and operating under the assumption that that information will be provided shortly. But I just wanted to make folks on the Finance Committee aware that that is our current situation. If we do end up having to pass over this article at town meeting, then so be it. But for now, we're forging on. So getting back to the zoning language, we go into the standardized language that, as you typically see in a bylaw like this. Establishment of the district and outlining of the affordability requirements, including a marketing plan, the required number of affordable units, design and construction, the affordable housing restriction. Again, a lot of this is unchanging from what was already in place, other than updating of the language, some minor tweaks to the language, I should say, namely changing administering agency, which was kind of a more general term, to a monitoring agent for purposes of affordable housing restriction compliance. I am sorry, breezing through. So we continue. We talk about phasing, project phasing, if applicable, computing affordable rents and purchase prices, standard permitted and prohibited uses. So this is really where I will say that the bylaw reflected the project that the applicant was seeking to bring to fruition. So, for example, and the subzone B, it's tailored, the requirements and what's permitted and what's not much is prohibited, but what's permitted is tailored around being able to provide a large scale multifamily residential development in this area. That includes things like a health club, leasing office, and customary accessory uses. So I think, and if the chair agrees, we could probably answer specific questions about this, or I can continue to go on and explain some specific things, but it might be more effective time-wise to hone in on specific bylaw language.
Yeah, I think the rest of it is kind of minor updates from that you've already covered. So we go to questions from the committee.
My only comment would be to change the sections that they're adding from bolded to something else. Because they use bolded.
Yeah, they use both bold and underlined in the document, so it's
Right, so that's hard. I was looking at it saying, okay, so does that mean that you're adding the whole 13.1 purpose and all the stuff that's there? It's hard to tell what's there and what they're adding.
Okay, got it. All right, yeah, absolutely, I could do that. Yep.
Yeah, I will offer. I mean, I noticed the same thing. There are various details about this that could benefit from improved formatting and representation. Since I did a lot of that kind of work with the general bylaws, and I've taken a very close look at this kind of offline from here, and I think between Fiona, myself, and William, we ought to be able to, because what we end up actually voting on at town meeting floor is likely to be at least somewhat different from this, because we will expect to receive additional comments from EOHLC about the proposed bylaw language. So we'll be formatting a bylaw in a more appropriate format for voting on town meeting floor in any case, I think. Unless, as Fiona noted, we don't get the state's approval, in which case we simply pass this over. But that's kind of neat. That's not a big deal for a discussion about the war in general.
No.
It's a formatting thing.
Yeah. All right. Are there any other comments from the committee or questions or from the public? All right. Let's move on to Article 49.
Okay. So, Article 49. So we are proposing an amendment, a warrant article amendment to amend the Appendix A, which is our use regulation table, which is very important for for zoning. And so essentially, this table, if for those who are not aware, basically outlines uses and what you're allowed to do in town and how. So ultimately, what we want to do is make a minor adjustment to add a line item under businesses that focuses on establishments selling food prepared for seasonal outdoor consumption, where customers are served primarily at a table or counter. And this would be allowed by mainly special permit in almost every district besides R20 and R40. Sorry, my heading got cut off, but yes, besides R20 and R40, and then site plan review in the neighborhood business and commercial business districts. So the reason that we propose this is because we're seeing, we saw businesses pivoting during COVID and really thriving with having the ability to have seasonal outdoor dining. And we're continuing to get applications. And the state did extend the period to, the period to the kind of COVID restaurant relief period and the ability to get like an outdoor liquor license and those benefits that were available during COVID for another year through April 2024. But we want to try and get ahead of that and allow businesses to be able to just continue to do this in perpetuity through a permit through planning board. So that is the background of this. And I think, happy to answer any questions, but the reason that we're doing mainly special permit in every district is that so that we can, really review applications on a case-by-case basis and make sure critical things are in place, protections, enough parking, accessibility, et cetera. So allowing this name predominantly through a special permit allows the board to make tweaks again on a case-by-case basis. And then obviously a site plan will be a little bit less regulatory, but that's only in our neighborhood business and commercial business districts, which are supposed to be conducive to commercial uses anyway. So yeah, happy to answer any questions about this article.
So thank you. If I'm remembering correctly, when I looked at this the other day, business use 6 is the same as 6A, except it doesn't say seasonal outdoor. So it's basically the indoor version of that. And basically the last 5 were permitted without a special permit. So, and then, or something like that. So these are very similar. It's just that you need a special permit just about everywhere where either special permit or allowed for the non-outdoor. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's accurate. Yep.
Right.
I don't know the exact count, 5 or not,
something in that area. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none online, okay. We can move on to Article 50.
Okay, so Article 50 pertains to updated definitions in Section 5.10.2 of our zoning bylaw, which focuses on marijuana uses. Dave, I apologize for putting you on the spot here, but when we approved this in October 2022, I believe was the original approval date.
Correct.
We received. Oh, good. Okay. So we received comments back from the Attorney General about updating some of our definitions to align with the most current definitions that the state is issuing, as well as the Cannabis Control Commission. So this is really just aligning with the recommendations that the Attorney General made, and we updated it accordingly. And this is particularly in relation to the definition for marijuana retailer and for the definition for off-site medical marijuana dispensary. So, yeah, happy to discuss that. But really, we're just making sure that we're compliant with the state and we have the most up-to-date definitions that we can.
If you're curious at all, the definition of marijuana retailer that we passed a year ago, I chose to take that definition from the state law. The AG said we really should take that definition from the CCC regs. So that's what this change reflects. The offsite medical, I neglected to notice that they removed the not-for-profit qualifications. So we're fixing my oversight on that and my wrong choice of a source of definition for the other one. So it's all on me.
And my understanding that the weird phrasing of to transfer or otherwise transfer this product comes from the CCC regulations as well. Not quite sure what they're thinking there, but transfer or otherwise transfer makes no sense, but that's what they want us to use.
When they changed the definition compared to state law,
Yep.
somebody wasn't thinking it through totally clearly.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very bizarre.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying, Greg. I was going through a whole grammatical journey over there.
Why should we mirror their mistake?
It's safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No one can say that we've got a definition that's inconsistent with the state. Yes, occasionally you run across something where you really scratch your head, why did the state write it that way? But
Versus
then you remember that, well, this didn't come from the legislature, this came from the Cannabis Control Commission.
Yeah. So I imagine they made a similar change. They changed sell to transfer and then didn't
finish their
finish
thought.
reading the sentence.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Any other questions from the committee
Straightforward.
or anybody in the public? All right. Thank you. All right. Last one for you. 51.
Almost. I believe I will be speaking for the ZBA as well. So
Okay.
almost done with me, but not quite yet. So Article 51, this is pertaining to section 3.2.3.2, another very important table in our zoning bylaw. So we are proposing to, I'm sorry, am I on the right? I'm sorry. We're on 51?
Yes. 3.2.3.2. Yep.
Yes, okay, so technically this one is the ZBA's. Yes, okay. All right. Yes. So this is apologies. So we are updating section 3.2.3.2, the intensity of use schedule, to add footnotes to allow essentially sheds. So what's going on is basically I worked with the zoning board, the ZBA administrator, and the building department to craft the language that we have in here, because what's happening is there is a large amount of applications for variances for sheds that are within the side and rear setbacks on properties, because there's a lot of smaller size lots. So every time somebody wants to put a shed, on their property, the likelihood, if they're like on a smaller lot, the likelihood that they are putting the structure in the side or rear setback is very high. So that is triggering, as I mentioned, a variance, which is really supposed to be the exception to the rule and not granted quite easily. It's really variances. It's a long and lengthy and expensive process for somebody who is, just trying to do a shed or a similar accessory structure. So what we proposed is to add a footnote in the table that says, next to all of the side and rear setback requirements for every zone, and say we're reducing the side and rear setbacks to 5 feet only for accessory structures to 1 and 2 family principal uses that don't occupy more than 200 square feet. So it's not going to open the door for like any type of accessory structure within your side and rear setback. It's really just for sheds, just based on the size here. So through this, now a person in Grafton with a smaller size lot that's not in compliance can just put in an application for I believe it's a shed. I think they have a specific shed permit in their department.
Shed permit, yes.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Devin. Yeah, so a shed permit, which is a lot easier for the average person to navigate, a lot easier process and inexpensive, and just makes more sense. So this has been something that I think the zoning board administrator has been trying to get done for a long time. And I think we're finally there, which is exciting. So happy to answer any questions.
Okay. So just note to the committee, all of these 10s were footnotes in the original document, and there was a formatting error when moving them into the warrant. So that is being addressed. They will be shown as footnotes again, as opposed to just the same size as the setbacks themselves. So that is being updated. So any questions from the committee? And I do not see any online. All right, thank you for that. And then we can move on to Article 52.
That is me. So yeah, I'm thinking that this might be slightly out of order, but that's okay. I think that 52 and 51 got switched. but it's fine because I'm presenting on both of them. But it just says, it says submitted by zoning board of appeals for Article 52, and this actually is a planning board warrant article. It's
So
about
the
the tractor.
submitted by is backwards on 51 and 52.
Yes.
Yeah, I believe
Okay.
so, yeah.
Amber, can you pass that on?
Yeah, of course.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, that's what I recall from when the planning board discussed putting these things on the warrant.
Okay.
Because we punted 51 to the ZBA.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, and also, Amber, maybe pass on to William or, that the usage of tool shed, I don't recall why that would be.
It's the previous entry in the table. So it comes after the tool shed entry. It's just locating it in the table or the section.
Okay, yeah, yeah, I guess my only concern, Mr. Chair, was that we never specifically use that language. But I can work with the TA's office to make sure that that's updated, because I think that they basically just got switched. But anyway, so Article 52, this is super simple. We need to incorporate a definition for tractor trailers. There has been issues with trying to enforce and prevent idling, and we never had a definition for a tractor trailer, what constitutes it. So memorializing this in the zoning bylaw allows us to have a definition to point to, and how we view tractor trailers to make sure that we do not allow, continuous idling issues. So it's really just adding a definition, but that was the background and why we proposed including this definition, because we actually do reference tractor trailers in our use table, the Appendix A use table, but we don't have a definition to tie it to. So.
Okay. Are there any questions from the committee on Article 52? Seeing none, thank you very much, Fiona, for your time. And
Thank you very much.
have a good evening.
Thank you, you too.
All right, next up is Community Preservation Committee for Article 54. Thank you.
And for you, good sir. And an extra just in case you lose it.
This is the treasurer's report that's put out at most every meeting of the CPC.
Okay.
And it's for fiscal 2024. And the first section is the revenue for the year. Second section are the reserve funds that are carried over from the prior year. And the third section are the 10% reserves, which flow from year to year. The light blue areas are the upcoming town meeting. You can see there's only one grant proposed. That's this warrant that we're here for.
Okay. Can you tell us more about this request?
The library approached us because they had a problem with leaking and plaster falling, and so they hired a consultant, they went up, they were able to look in, see some of the issues that were going on. They made a temporary repair with, using caulking to try to prevent additional water from coming in. But they need to do a much more extensive repair and restoration of the cupola. It was over 20 years ago, they had done significant work, and it's at that point again where they need to go in and somebody needs to take care of the rot that is allowing the water to get in, to repair some of the flashing. I think that the lead flashing is compromised, and do whatever repairs they need to do to the ceiling inside.
They have substantial additional funds, right?
And this is approximately a third of the cost. The Mass Historical Commission has a preservation projects fund, and the library's received those funds before, and so this is one of their one of their buildings that they have invested money into. So this is something they want to see maintained. So they did get a $70,000 grant for that, which is a matching grant. The Board of Library Trustees is also going to match that, and so I think they're actually going to go a little bit over that 70, but they're asking us for the 74,114.
Okay. We'll start with,
Which is something we really like to see, because usually people come and ask for all of it.
Yep.
And so we've slowly but surely over the last 20 years got people to understand, if you come with money in your hand, we're more likely to put money in that other hand, or able to help you with your project better, because we can't give you all the money, because if we give everybody all the money, then we wouldn't have any money to give all the projects that seek funding.
Okay. Start questions from the committee.
You mentioned that the library trustees are coming up with $70,000.
I think it's their state aid funds. It's not that they have a investment account. It's that they get X dollars, and I don't know how many $100,000 that they get each year to run and maintain their facility, and that's what they're going to allocate from that, the state aid. They get money from the town, and then they also get the Board of Library Overseers, or whatever the correct name is.
I just have a comment. I think it's worth in the write-up to certainly state that this is a third ask, because the other 2/3 are being matched, so that everyone has that kind of full idea going into town meeting. I completely agree with you. I think that's going to make it very easily palatable. Right?
And another thing that I think most people don't understand, which that Mass Historical has a very high standard and a very low award rate. So for Grafton to continue to get money speaks well of Grafton, and it speaks well of its project, because there are a lot of projects that are very worthy, but they don't get funding, or they don't get the amount of funding. They might give you $10,000 or $20,000. Here they're giving $70,000, which is in a year that they didn't have a whole lot of money in their award budget. That was a really Beth was very excited when she found out that they were awarded that amount.
We might want to reach out to them for some more specific information for our little blurb to explain who this money's coming, like the exact names of the sources of other funding besides the CPA.
Oh, you mean reach out to the library?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think all that information is actually in the application packet.
It's in the CP.
Yeah.
The application. It's like, I don't know if I could look it up.
Well, just for us to write our blurb,
Okay.
it would help.
So, my first question is this considered historical preservation?
Yes, and that's something that there was a question raised at our meeting, whether this was eligible for CPA funds, and the 3 members on the committee that are the longest serving both said yes. This is not a painting project.
Yeah.
This is a restoration project, and the concern was, well, if you just let things fall apart, then you're gonna have to get funding for it. I said that's why all this funding happens. It's because you can't. Municipalities typically don't maintain things the way, nobody does. Nobody likes to spend money
Yeah.
on maintenance. And so I did write a letter or an email to Stuart, just blanked on his last name. Saganor, who is the Community Preservation Coalition Executive Director. And they are a resource for us that provides technical assistance. And he said, most certainly, this is eligible for funding. This is the typical type of project that gets funded. And there is no issue with funding this project. And if you'd like that, I'd be happy to forward that.
Yeah. So my question related to that is, I see we have a historical reserve balance of $63,000, and CPC recommends that you use the reserve funds before you use the less general ones. I'm wondering why this is called out as a simple budgeted reserve.
It's because it's simpler, rather than splitting it up into different accounts, it's kind of confusing. We just went from one of the other accounts that had plenty of money. We'll use that historical reserve money next spring for the bond.
Okay, so there is already something coming up that you're expecting to use that money for.
We'll use it. We'll use it for the bond next spring.
For the townhouse.
Okay. Angelina, you had a question?
I was just wondering, the money that we got from the state for this, if it didn't go through, what would happen to that money? Would it be shifted for another purpose, or was it applied for specifically for this and we'd have to send it back?
The grant money?
Yeah.
That's historical. You don't get the money. You spend the money and they reimburse you.
Okay.
So you never, it's like any of the, that's historical. I don't know about other state grants. You have to have the money, all of the money. They
Okay.
reimburse you. And it's not like they write the check the next day. So
Okay.
It's,
Makes sense.
you have to be fully funded.
Uh-huh.
And that's one thing with the town, and it's always worked, and I don't know how there's enough cash reserve to cover whenever there's like a matching grant, that we've done this in the past.
Mhm.
For the historical commission, we did that, and they gave us a grant, but we didn't have all the money, and so the town fronted the whole amount up front, and then CPC paid for half, and then the state reimbursed.
Okay. Thank you.
But so there is no money that would go back to the state. You just wouldn't get it.
Right. You just wouldn't get it. Okay.
Some other town would get it, just
Mhm.
like our library.
Okay. Evan, you had a comment?
Yeah, has the CPC funded renovation of this cupola in the past?
No,
We didn't do a project on this at all.
I thought we had, and I double checked, and I looked, and other people looked. It's not there. It's on the state website. It is not there. I think the library funded this totally, or the town funded this.
Separately somewhere else?
That Mass Historical gave them a grant initially for this,
Right.
and I think that's what started the whole Mass Historical Preservation Projects Fund and the town, because it would have been a matching project at that point.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
So according to the,
Let me just follow up with
Oh,
that.
sure.
And even if we did use CPA funds, that was the kind of the secondary question to the coalition. That's an appropriate use of funds. That you're continuing to maintain historic buildings that over time they're going to need repair, they're going to need maintenance. This is not something that towns like to do or have extra money to do, and that's the whole point of CPA, is to fund these projects.
Right. I just, I know when we had spoken before, if you've used CPA money to do a project in the past and the town didn't maintain it, that CPA or the CPC was reluctant to give any funds towards that project.
No, that's not the case. I mean,
As long as it meets the criteria.
it's whether that project is worthy at that, that whenever we get a grant, it doesn't matter if it wasn't maintained over time. I mean, I think that's the whole point of having CPA and the historical preservation component, that whether the building is maintained or not. I mean, it deteriorates on its own just over time, but also sometimes to do not as much maintenance as you would like to do.
Right.
But it has to meet the criteria, and that's what's critical.
Yeah, in this case, also the library attested that they, going forward, have a maintenance plan. A long-term maintenance plan for this for their library and this structure included.
Yep, I agree. This is exactly what CPC is for.
So the other question I have, I know we talked, CPC has talked many times about not replacing existing funding, and according to the application, the Board of Library Trustees allocated almost $110,000 towards this project, but when it came down to the funding source listed in the table, it was reduced to around $70,000. Do you know why that is?
You'd have to have Beth speak to that, because I don't know if Colleen might have a better recollection of that. It was however much was needed, because that was our concern at the last meeting when we approved the project. Is there enough money in case there's an unexpected expense? Is there contingency? And I think they felt like that was going to be the contingency, that overage, if there were any, because we were saying, should we make this more? And Justin was thinking we should up the number, and they said, no, we're comfortable with this number.
Yeah, that was it. She used the term she didn't want to decimate the account, but when I asked her, would they commit that much money if it would decimate the account, she didn't really have an answer for that. So, but that question stands for me as well. How do we stay on top of that money in the sense that gets spent down, the whole 110, before the CPA money gets spent down?
Well,
just so the turn back comes back to us and not.
I watch the bills. If the bills come to me, the bills have to come to me to get paid.
Right. So you'll be in charge of to make sure their whole 110 gets spent down?
I will be in touch with Mary to make sure, because I went over this because we had a problem with this, with another project that was paid first, and it should have been paid last.
Yeah, that's standard procedure with the committee.
Right, but with the way the application looks, it doesn't look like it's pretty standard, because it looks like it's buried in there, so that money looks like it could be easily lost track of.
But it's, and I'm assuming, again, that's not a good thing to do, that the library's bills are paid through the town accountant's office.
Oh, I wouldn't know.
Is it Mary? Mary. Are the library bills, all their bills, other than anything from the nonprofit foundation that they have, they all come through you to be paid?
Everything comes through the accountant's office.
Okay.
I can ensure that those two funds are expended first before CPA is expended.
Okay, so the funding sources for this project is $109,000 from the library trust, $20,000 from the capital campaign, $70,000 from Mass Historical for $199,000, and then the $74,000 on top of that for the remaining fund.
I will send an email to Beth to confirm all of the accounts and all of the funding, and I will follow up with the CPC committee.
So whenever this happens, all the bills will be processed through Beth, through Mary and her office. So they'll get paid. So we won't see any of those bills, because that part of the project is not ours. We don't control those bills. But once all those funds are expended, then those bills will come to us. And Beth knows to send the bills to us, and working with Mary, we'll make sure. Because first bill I'll get is, I'll say, are you sure all the money's expended before I approve anything?
So it would be good to put in the description of this article that the library has $199,114 in funding that'll be used, and then the CPC money will be supplementing that. Okay. Any further questions on Article 55 from the committee?
It's not about Article 55, and I should probably know this. The error, it's the May ATM Article 20 error. What is that? All the way down in the summary. Should I know? Should we know? Should I know that?
Yeah, that was an accounting glitch that happened at the Maytown meeting. The amount of funds that was put on the listed on the warrant for the fiscal 2024 budgeted reserve got copied from the wrong place, and it turned out to be lower
Okay.
but that money will flush back into the CPC accounts, and so it's not material.
And this is Article 54, right? Not 55?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yes. I have them both on my screen right now. Yeah. Any other questions on 54? All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. And if you have any questions or need more details, please ask Beth, because Beth can, as the proponent, and that's one thing that at town meeting,
Yep.
the proponent's responsible for answering, like, the questions that you're asking us. So that you get all the information that she has, because all we know is what we approved.
Okay, thank you.
It's not for you, it's more for the article piece. Do we say that they'll appropriate up to, or does it matter? Just so you know-
Gentlemen, one question.
Oh, I don't, yeah, would it be that? I don't know if it would be.
Do
that or
we,
it would be-
there's a question on whether the vote should be vote to appropriate the 74,000, or should it be up to? Is it always appropriated the full amount, and then anything that's not spent just comes back?
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Right, because ours are the last dollar spent.
Yep.
It's supposed to be, whatever is left over,
Right, I just didn't know if it had to somehow be.
make sure all the bills are paid, and then all that goes back, and like for this goes into the, I think, budget and reserve, or historic reserve, whichever
Right.
pocket, bucket it's supposed to go into, so it doesn't just go into a general fund, so if it's a 10% reserve.
Hey, you gotta go to the mic, sorry, that's what he's not.
Sorry. If there's any money left over, it will go back to the funding source.
Okay.
It won't just
Yep.
go into a general fund, so that if it were part of a 10% set aside for affordable housing, it would go back to affordable housing or historic preservation or open space. So it stays designated whether it's spent or unspent.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
I quickly pulled up a couple previous warrants and it says to appropriate a sum of, not
Okay.
up to. So,
Okay.
yeah, consistent at least.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
You know, we sort of go back and forth with all these articles, so. The wording, I should say.
So next section on the agenda is the bylaw study committee articles. So I'll let Dave call that meeting to order since the entire committee is here.
Yes, we have the full membership of the study committee here is present, including Mr. Courier and Mr. Marr, our finance committee members, who are also on the bylaw committee. So I will formally call this meeting of the bylaw study committee to order. Since we are all here in person, we don't need to do the Zoom roll call bit. And I guess I'll start out with sort of a very brief introduction to what we're doing here. The bylaw study committee is responsible for the first 45 articles of this warrant. I didn't try to calculate the percentage of the total warrant that we have, but it's a lot. We had, for anybody who is not maybe aware of what the bylaw study committee is or has done, the bylaw study committee is the town charter requires the town to form a committee every 5 years to review the general bylaws and propose any updates that seem to be determined by the committee to be appropriate. It so happens that the last bylaw study committee before this was 20 years ago. They brought some bylaw updates to the 2003 fall town meeting. So we are, in a sense, catching up on 20 years worth of review work. I would like to just mention that the committee's been at the committee of 5, myself, Skip Courier, Greg Marr, Andy Jefferson, representing the select board, and Brian Langevin, a member at large. We've been working very diligently for the past year, slightly over a year. We started our work, the serious part of the work last year in August. We had an organizational meeting in June, but we really started work in August. So it's been a lot of work, and I would like to compliment some of my appreciation to all the committee members for putting all the time in on this. We have reviewed the bylaws, all 41 articles of the general bylaws, in detail. We've produced articles 1 through 41 of the town meeting warrant, one town meeting warrant article for each bylaw article. We have Article 42, which is kind of a catch-all authorizing some editorial revisions that the committee chose not to incorporate specifically in every one of their bylaw proposals due to some time limitations. We didn't want to spend too much time on nitpicky editorial things, so we've got a sort of a generic authorization for the town clerk and the town administrator to work on non-substantive editorial things. Also, during our work, we encountered a few issues with the charter relative to mostly prompted by our review of elected and appointed offices. So Articles 43, 44, and 45 are proposing some tweaks to the town charter. And without attempting to explain all of the 41 articles in any kind of detail at all, I will just sort of mention that we did a pretty thorough review. We looked we found typos, spelling issues, grammar issues, paragraph numbering issues. We looked for consistency among bylaw articles. We looked for consistency in conflicts with the town charter and with state law. We looked to revise or eliminate bylaw provisions that were clearly out of date or no longer needed. We looked to add new provisions where there seemed to be a need for that. And we continually solicited comments and suggestions from basically everybody, reaching out particularly to all of the town officers, boards, departments that were involved in any way with administering the bylaws, because from their if they're administering it, we figured they'd have some useful feedback for us. So we got a lot of good feedback, and again, we ended up with 41 articles, one for each bylaw article, and with that, I'll leave it at that. However you guys want to go through and address each one of the warrant articles. Yep. It's up to you.
Thank you for that introduction.
I think we're all available to answer questions should they come up.
Yeah. A couple other things on the introduction. Andy Jefferson is our select board representative. It was initially Ray Mead, so he was on the committee for a while. Dave Robbins is here as the designee from the town administrator, who was specified as town administrator as designee to be on the committee, and Skip is representing the town clerk. So the initial list of people on the committee was finance committee representative, town clerk, town administrator, and a select board representative, and one at-large person. So I'd like to thank Dave for all of his leadership and a lot of the editorial work doing that. We did publish a full report that is now available on the town website, including a lot of that introduction, the full copy of the bylaws showing all the edits in a readable form that lists the entire thing, and the sections of the charter that we are proposing to change. And yeah, on each of those sections is a description of each of the changes in each of the articles, and that change list is also published as a separate document to go along with the warrant, which is a stripped down version of that. I think we went from like 107 pages of the report to about 70 pages in the warrant. I think what I would like to do is start with the supplemental motions, the 42 through 45, get those started, and then start working through the regular motion. And we have time tonight and tomorrow to work on that, so maybe start with about an hour's worth and then see how we're going, if we want to continue or finish the other business we have for this evening. Does anyone else have anything else they'd like to? Evan?
Yeah, I was hoping I could request that if you go through this whole bylaw review and FinCom is unanimous in its recommendation, that we chunk that up and write one recommendation to cover the first 45 articles, just from a human capital standpoint
Yep.
this is a long one. So, the less chance for error, the better, in my opinion. So that might be something to consider.
And the committee has also discussed internally that we think we should do a consent motion for the entire 45, or at least for the first four, or at least 1 through 41, and then maybe for the other ones after that. But that's discussion for a little bit later. But that,
Okay,
that was our recommendation.
I may not make it to the end, so I wanted to make sure I just grabbed you now. So thank you for let me give my input there.
Okay. Let's start with Article 42. Dave?
So, Article 42 is sort of a blanket authorization. Short enough, I'll just sort of I'll read it, although you can all read it in the warrant as well. We want the town to vote to authorize the town clerk or designee, in consultation with the town administrator or designee, to make such non-substantive editorial revisions as may be necessary or appropriate to the bylaws as amended by this town meeting for consistency of formatting and presentation, including but not limited to abbreviations, terminology, references to the general laws, section and subsection labels and headings, list style, spelling, capitalization, and document structure. So it's basically make it look better. But
not change.
No, that's right. Those are that's intended to be non-substantive. So not to change the meaning, but I'll just throw out one example of why we wrote this. References to Massachusetts general laws that we found in the existing bylaws. Sometimes it refers to Massachusetts general laws. Sometimes it refers to general laws. Sometimes it refers to M.G.L. Sometimes it refers to MGL. Sometimes it refers to GL. Sometimes it refers to G period, L period. And then the chapter designations. They sometimes spell out the word chapter or abbreviate it CH or abbreviate it C. Sections sometimes spells out the word section, sometimes says sec, sometimes says S, sometimes has that neat little squiggly section symbol. So the idea here is to just make those all consistent. And there are all sorts of other little consistency in representation and formatting and terminology.
Like by space laws or by dash laws or bylaws. All is one word.
And don't get me started on all the different things I would like to do. If it were entirely up to me, what I would do to it, but we don't need to go there.
Since last August.
Okay. Does the committee have any questions on this article? Okay, let's move on to the charter amendments. Article 43.
So Article 43, I don't have it in front of me. Article 43 picks up two instances where the charter has not kept up with state law. One of those instances goes all the way back to 1993, the Education Reform Act, where the Ed Reform Act said that the school committee hires the superintendent hires everybody else. The language in the charter dates from pre-Ed Reform, where the school committee is responsible for a lot more of the hiring. So we're just updating the language there in the charter. The second one is the Housing Authority. State law recently changed and required one member of the Housing Authority to be a tenant representative. One continues to be a state appointee, so now the Housing Authority only has 3 members elected by the town. So we're proposing fixing the charter to accurately represent that. The next article, 44, deals with clarifying who gets to appoint whom. We have recently implemented the strong chief, and the town meeting vote said the fire chief is to be hired by the select board. A careful and strict reading of the charter doesn't allow us to do that. The charter designates who the select board appoints, and it doesn't include the fire chief in that. The charter further says that if the charter doesn't say it's a select board appointment, then it is a town administrator appointment. So a literal reading of the charter would require the town administrator appoint the chief, which is not what we wanted. So we're proposing to modify the charter language so that we can use a bylaw to designate an officer to be appointed by the select board. It also happens to apply to the parking clerk. For many years, the town administrator, the charter has the town administrator, requires the town administrator to appoint the parking clerk. For many years, the town administrator appointed the chief of police as the parking clerk. A couple of years toward the end of that period, I think the assistant town administrator. But for the last several years, the select board has designated the town administrator as the parking clerk. And it's kind of awkward for the town administrator to be appointing themselves. And so what we want is we want to make it possible for the select board to appoint the parking clerk. And again, this charter change in Article 44 basically aligns the charter with the way we want appointments to work. And I'll note in passing that one of the reasons why this is important is that under the Home Rule Procedures Act, Chapter 43B, Section 20, the charter for appointments, the charter, and for elected officials as well, the charter overrules everything that state law has to say, with the exception of select board, school committee, town moderator. They must be always elected, and the housing authority thing I mentioned earlier. But other than that, what the town charter says about appointing authorities is gospel. It doesn't matter what state law says. So even though state law might say this guy is a select board appointment, the charter, the way the charter was written, appointments largely defaulted to the town administrator. So we're proposing to align the charter with our current practice. And Article 45.
There's what the local newspaper.
Oh, yes. That's right, I forgot. So, the charter in Section 7 has a definition of local newspaper that refers to the town website. What we did through the bylaws to be consistent and clear, we used the term official website of the town of Grafton. And so Article 44 proposes updating the definition to match that, to be just a little bit of clarity as to what website you're referring to. Did I miss anything? No. I don't have it in front of me to read. Yep. And then Article 45, if we want to, might as well cover all three. Article 45 was prompted initially by the fact that the Article 8 of the Charter of the list of transitional provisions, and it included a list of appointments, which was intended to be applicable only until the bylaws were updated to match, and that happened back in 1988. And that prompted us to take a closer look at the transitional provisions. We realized that none of those transitional provisions are really needed anymore. We completed the transition to the charter form of government in the late 80s. Everything of the transitional provisions, was all done before, by about 1988, I think, was when we updated the bylaws to match. So that it's no longer a necessary part of the charter, and it's confusing when people read it. So we're proposing to delete that section of the charter entirely.
Okay. Anyone from the committee have any questions or comments on the charter revisions? Seeing none? Okay. I guess we'll go back and start at the top. So do we want to go through ones individually? Has the committee had time to look at it and wants to talk about specific articles, or? Okay, well, if there's no questions, I guess we'll start at the top. Want to go through the summary points for each one? I think that would probably be easier than trying to read all the text.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just sort of quickly run through the and the summary points that we've included, that we've written up for each article. Some of them vary in detail, and I won't read every one of them.
Yep.
I'll read those that are something other than sort of a trivial, non-substantive sort of thing. So in Article 1, Section 6 of Article 1 is all about penalties. And it was divided into 4 subsections for various purposes. What we've done here is simplify and clarify the language on penalties, align it in some cases with the current state of the art. And this was particularly, we sought town council's review on the right way to write this all up. So we more clearly described the penalty provisions and procedures, and we explicitly authorized the use of non-criminal disposition for violations of bylaws and regulations. Some towns will include at this point in their bylaws a list of all the different bylaws that non-criminal disposition may be used for. We chose not to do that because with each bylaw for which we wanted non-criminal disposition applied, we included it in that particular bylaw article. But this is sort of a generic authorization, and maybe a little notice, but it also authorizes non-criminal disposition for violation of various town regulations, of which the Board of Health has a couple that they apply non-criminal disposition to. This clarifies that, basically. Section 7 goes back to something Skip asked what one of the zoning bylaws, severability. Article 1, Section 7 basically says for the entire bylaws, if any part of any one bylaw article is found by some court to be invalid, that doesn't affect the validity of anything else. So you can't kill the entire bylaws by finding one sentence that's invalid. And many, as I mentioned earlier, many of the bylaw articles individually have their own severability clauses, all of them worded a little differently. And town council has pointed out that the different wording could conceivably cause trouble. So her recommendation was either every bylaw article has its own severability clause and they all are worded exactly the same way, or we put one in that applies across the board. And I won't mention this again with the individual bylaw articles, but we deleted the severability clauses from the individual articles on the theory that this one clause covers everything. Section 8, the wording there dates to pre-charter times, and it has to do with not allowing a person to hold more than one elective office at a time. We reworded this a bit for clarity and to fill a gap, and we also made it clear that what it means is if you hold one elected office, you run for another one, and you get elected, or alternatively, you are appointed to fill a vacancy in another elected office. You can do all that, but you can't take the new office until you've resigned from your old one. So this is a clarification of that language. Bylaw Article 1, Section 9 is the list of select board and town administrator appointments. It had a lot of stuff in there that was out of date, a lot of stuff in there that repeated appointments that were spelled out elsewhere in the bylaws. So we've simplified this and reduced it down to listing the appointments that, in 2 ways. One is kind of generically, the select board shall appoint everybody that the charter says they appoint, everybody that somewhere else in the bylaws says they appoint, and here's a few specific things that aren't listed anywhere else. So we simplified that in a way that would sort of minimize the risk of it becoming out of date and minimize the risk of things being in conflict with one another. Removing appointments no longer exist or don't need to be mentioned here. Section 10 of Article 1 really belong together with Section 5, so we merged those two.
Okay. Any questions on Article 1? Seeing none, let's move on. Article 2.
Article 2 was all about town meetings. We updated the language about posting the notices of town meetings, clarified language about admittance to the floor of the hall. We added a missing motion to the order of motions. We clarified some details about electronic voting, including that we're officially authorized to use electronic voting instead of paper ballots. Clarified restrictions on reconsideration of motions. A few other minor clarifications that I won't go into. Like missing comma, you don't need to know that.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't need to talk about that necessarily. Although occasionally a missing comma can change the meaning.
And this one, we did get, the moderator to, the moderator is the one that provided us the missing motion. So.
Yep.
Any questions on Article 2? Okay, moving on. Let's talk about us.
Article 3 of the Finance Committee. You guys don't care about that, do you?
So this is pretty much just what we approved at our meeting last month. I don't think there was anything else that we changed after that. Any questions on that one?
For the benefit of the public that may be watching this, was an updates made to the membership of the Finance Committee. Where currently it's one member from each precinct. And given the near future expansion of the town into 6 precincts, the Finance Committee felt that respecifying that as one member per zip code is a more stable arrangement. And along with the town charter change we approved back in May regarding the committee that appoints Finance Committee members, the charter change basically left it up to the bylaws to say exactly who is on that committee. And so the Finance Committee's recommended language for this was whatever it is, whatever is in the warrant article, which I don't remember.
Or their designee was added for the
Town clerk or designee,
and the
moderator or designee, and a member of the FinCom that's not up for reappointment. That's right.
Yeah.
Just want to, real quickly, for members of the public watching, the near addition of a new precinct is after the 2030 census.
Yes,
so just
yes.
to make sure people don't take the wrong meaning of near.
Yes, it's not next year.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's
within the next 10.
Yes, it's going to happen in probably 2031 or 2032.
Yeah.
That's
Because
still
we-
almost 10 years away.
We have to do that when we hit 20,001 residents, and we were at 19,600 approximately after the last census. So I think it's foregone conclusion that we will get there by the next census.
Yeah, and there were some other changes to Article 3, just to align, improve the alignment with the charter and a few other procedures. But really, I think we've hit on the two more notable changes.
Okay, Article 4.
Article 4, the list of what's changed here is kind of long, but it largely, we made a couple of adjustments to account for inflation. For reporting in the town in the annual report, there is a threshold of $1,000. Any expense over $1,000, we update that upped that to $2,500. Clarified some other language, removed several sections that dated from pre-charter times, pre-town administrator times. One section we removed because it was utterly redundant with state law. If you want to know, it's 30B. The bylaw said we have to comply with chapter 30B, but we'd have to do that even if there was no bylaw. So that's an example of where the bylaw just didn't really need to be there anymore. And then perhaps somewhat significant was at the end of Article 4. There was some language about establishment of committees and reorganization of committees. We clarified that to spell out when committees need to be appointed, and separately to spell out when committees needed to reorganize in terms of their officers. The bylaw was somewhat inconsistent with actual current practice on that. So we clarified, basically, we clarified it to align with current practice, to where most committee appointments now run on a fiscal year basis. So the idea is after the beginning of a fiscal year, you want to reorganize your committee, except for elected boards, those are reorganized after the election, and that doesn't change. But this language, what we're proposing here, provides a good deal of clarity on, and it largely, as I said, aligns with existing practice.
Okay. Kyle?
May have answered my own question, but I'll ask it anyway. So I see in some cases we're deleting entire sections, but we're not changing the numbers of subsequent sections. Is that kind of what we talked about with like the article was 42, 43, where we can go back in and make just like numbering changes as needed? Is that kind of the purpose of that article?
Yeah, I think the copy of the warrant you were given, you know, deleted the section, and did not keep the section number. We've revised that. I think the latest version of the warrant that I think William has, we fixed that, because everywhere else, what we did was we this was kind of across the board. We preserved section numbering for the time being. So it'll be a section 6 deleted. It's the way it's supposed to read, and it may be an earlier copy of the warrant didn't match that in for this bylaw article and only for this bylaw article.
And part of the rationale behind keeping the section numbers is that there are internal references within the bylaws to bylaw chapter and section, and there are external references other places outside of the bylaw that if we were to suddenly renumber all of the things in there, then the references would be out of date. And interesting enough, that's also how we ended up with a chapter an Article 28A without an Article 28 is an article was deleted at one point and they renumbered everything up through 28, but didn't renumber 28A to 28. So now the articles go 27, 28A, 29.
We'll leave it to some future, possibly to this Article 42 group that is going to go back through these. At some point, we might be renumbering everything, but for our work, we did not want to disturb article or section numbering.
Yep.
Okay, that makes sense. And then I have let me know if this is like not possible, but I have a quick question on Article 1 that I thought of as we were going through Article 3.
Sure.
Can I ask that quickly?
Yep.
So Section 9, should that whole section be underlined because we're replacing it? Is that new language or no?
Yeah. The way we wrote the warrant article was it's replacing Section 9 with something new. So yeah, in most cases, we say what follows here is strike through for deleting and underline for new. But when you're just deleting a whole section and replacing with something else, you don't need to put the underline, because when you say replace it with this is you understood to be new.
Okay.
We want it just to be easier to read without the underline. So
yeah.
Thanks for clarification. I appreciate it.
Yes, there's some odd things that you run into once in a while, figuring out how to construct your warrant articles in a way that makes sense.
Okay, any questions on Article 4? All right, Article 5.
Article 5 was a minimal update. Andy shepherded this through the select board, but basically Section 6 of Article 5 was updated because of the way it referred to select board appointments was less than complete. So that's updated to match reality. Section 7 talked about the clerk of the select board having to maintain all the select board proceedings in a bound book. Now, you can probably find those bound books in the town clerk's archive somewhere, but that's not done anymore. And that was the only duty prescribed by the town bylaw for the select board clerk. So since striking that leaves the select board clerk with nothing to do as required by bylaw, we just eliminated the select board clerk position from the bylaw itself, which doesn't eliminate the select board clerk. You know, a lot of boards and committees elect a clerk, but it was only in the case of the select board where the board's clerk was actually spelled out in the bylaw. But that's no longer needed. It's another one of these archaic things that we decided didn't belong there anymore.
Okay, any questions on 5? Seeing none. Article 6.
Article 6 on the treasurer collector. Not a lot of major changes. Highlighted in the list of changes here is removing single gender language, which I don't need to repeat that everywhere, because we throughout the entire bylaws, with one exception, we removed all gender specific language, just for advance warning. The one section we didn't address on that is Article 20, the personnel bylaw, because Evan and company are working on a comprehensive update to that. So we only wanted to do a minimal, just a minimal update to Article 20. So we left the gendered language in that alone because that's going to be covered by a more comprehensive update of the personnel bylaw and personnel policies, which Evan is working on, but with everything else Evan was responsible for, he wasn't able to get that done in time for this bylaw review, which is okay. We said take however much time you need to get it done and done right.
Any questions on Article
But yeah,
6?
treasurer collector, there was really nothing of much substance, some clarifications, removing unnecessary wording.
Okay. Article 7.
Article 7 on the town clerk. Aside from some things, removing some things that are redundant or unnecessary or clarifying language, the big thing to note on Article 7 was Article 7 had a schedule of fees to be charged by the town clerk for this, that, and the other thing. And we worked on that for a while, scratched our heads, and then we finally came to the realization that that no longer needs to be in the bylaw. The town adopted the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 22F, which allows the town clerk to set fees without town meeting action. Prior to that, the bylaws really did need to set the clerk's fees, but now that we've accepted 22F, the bylaws no longer need to spell out the fee schedule for the town clerk. So this reduces the amount of work the town clerk needs to do to update their fee schedule because they no longer have to get it done in the bylaw.
Okay. Any questions on Article 7? Seeing none. Article 8.
Article 8 on the town account, that's a pretty short article, and again, it's mostly cleanup language, clarification.
Okay. Any questions on 8? Okay. Article 9.
Another very small article to begin with, and there the only change we've made of any significance was to revise posting requirements for the list of assessments. And where formerly it was 4 unspecified places within the town, now the bylaw says it's going to be posted at the municipal center and on the website.
Okay. Any questions? Article 10.
Article 10 was largely removing gender-specific language and some text that was duplicated, probably an editing glitch somewhere along the line.
Okay. Any questions on 10? Okay. 11.
11, the inspector of wires, again, minor wording revisions, deleting the penalty provision from that because it's essentially already covered by the penalty provisions back in Article 1.
Okay. Any questions on Article 11? All right. Article 12.
Article 12 is it's a kitchen sink sort of article. Most articles deal with one topic. Article 12 deals with it's got 29 sections. Every one of them is a different topic. So much of the change that we made to Article 12 was sort of housekeeping, clerical in nature. Section 18 of Article 12 was a penalty section which totally duplicated what Article 1 said about penalties. It was unnecessary there. Probably the most significant change to Article 12 was Section 21 having to do with accessible parking. This article dated back to pre-ADA times, 1980s, 83 I think it came in, something like that. And it was, the purpose of that article was to require the provision of accessible parking spaces pretty much everywhere in town. And that part of it, totally unnecessary now because ADA, state law, accessibility, Architectural Access Board regulations cover all the topic areas of Section 21-1. Sections 21-2 and 21-3 have to do with authorizing the the town to tow vehicles that are obstructing handicapped or accessible parking spaces and curb ramps. Those are basically two separate sections. We're dealing with two different categories of where that can happen. So we combined those two articles into much simpler language that had the same effect. Section 21-4 was a repetition of state law that actually added nothing of substance to the bylaws. So again, state law already says you can do this. You don't need the bylaw to also say you can do this. There were a few other changes that I'll make note of. On fingerprint-based background checks, the AG, when we passed that several years back, the AG advised us that we need to be sure that the applicants are aware that they have a right to appeal or to correct the record. And that wasn't explicit in the bylaw. We just added a couple sentences there to make that explicit. It's presumably procedures we follow anyway, but you know, the AG likes to see that written out. On section 27, limiting construction hours, it talks about excessive noise from construction activities, but it doesn't say where you measure that or how you enforce it. So we added some language to that. Plastic bag reduction, we had no enforcement provisions for that, so we spelled that out. Polystyrene reduction, we clarified some administrative and enforcement responsibilities. We added non-criminal disposition to quite a few parts of Article 12 here. So those are kind of the highlights of what we did with Article 12. But yeah, you read through it and it's just a lot of stuff there.
So does anyone have any questions on Article 12? Seeing none, move on. Article 13.
Article 13, earth removal. Mostly relatively minor stuff. Amending the posting requirements. There was some formatting and typographical issues that were clearing up there. There were some transitional requirements that are no longer necessary. A couple of details with enforcement and inspections.
Okay, questions on 13? Seeing none. Article 14.
14 is very much like Article 11. Article 11 was the wiring inspector. This is the gas inspector. And same thing, minor wording revisions and removing the unnecessary penalty provision.
Okay, questions on 14? Okay, Article 15.
Article 15, the only thing of any substance there was, in fact, I think literally this is the only thing we added, was the option to enforce by means of non-criminal disposition.
Okay, questions on 15? Article 16.
Article 16.
So this,
currently known as Dogs Running at Large, to be retitled Animal Control.
Thank you, Amy.
And this was largely updated to conform with current state law regarding animal control, our current practices in Grafton, where we contract with Westboro for animal control rather than having our own animal control officer. So most of the changes in here reflect updates to state law and current practices.
Yeah, the majority of these changes actually came from our animal control officer.
Yep.
This is the one where we got the most feedback out of the group responsible or empowered by this one. Any questions on 16? Okay, 17.
17, not much to do there. That's the Council on Aging. There was just some updates to be consistent with the charter regarding membership terms.
And not allowing people to have concurrent terms on the council.
Yes,
that was a fun one.
Yes, concurrent terms is sort of an odd choice of terminology there.
Okay, any questions on 17? All right, 18. 18
is house numbering. Some clarifications there to filling in some missing detail. As it's currently written, it seems to require the occupants to be responsible for numbering their homes, which is a problem if the occupant is not the homeowner. So we clarified that to make the owner of the home be responsible for putting the numbers out there. Added some details to the requirements for numbers to ensure that they're visible from the road. Important for the police and fire if they want to get to your house, you want to make sure they get to the right number.
I think this one we did increase the size a little bit. Did we end up, or did
Yeah.
we end up?
Yeah, I
keeping-
think we did.
Yeah, it was a little bit, and then I think we added the, little more information on the like houses that were way off the road.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, any questions on Article 18? Seeing none, Article 19.
Article 19 is titled Betterment Procedures, which is that title makes it difficult to understand what the article is really all about. And so we're changing the title to reflect the content. Section 1 of Article 19 has to do with temporary repairs to private ways. And Article 9, the revision there provided by Evan goes into a good deal more detail about how and when the select board can authorize the town to make temporary repairs on private ways. And it provides a good deal of flexibility in the town's choice of what to do, how to do it, and how to get it funded. I mean, the reason the article had a title of Betterment Procedures was it sort of said that if the town's going to repair a private way, the town's going to assess a betterment on everybody who's abutting the private way. And that's still an option, but in some cases, it's more trouble than it's worth for a low-cost repair. So Evan was looking for a lot more flexibility. And so this section, we basically completely rewrote it to provide the select board with a lot more flexibility regarding these repairs of private ways. The second section of Article 19 has to do with the town accepting a private way as a public way, which most often happens through a subdivision development, but can happen other ways as well. As we saw earlier in the warrant review, we have 2 private ways which we are now working on having accepted as a public way, and that kind of falls under this Article 19, Section 2. We've revised that a bit to clarify its relationship with Mass General Laws, Chapter 82, which deals a lot with it, spells out a number of the procedures for roadway acceptance. Article 19, Section 2 adds some detail to the town's procedure for following state law in accepting private ways. So I think that ultimately what we did here was to clarify that a bit more.
Okay, any questions on Article 19? Okay, Article 20.
Article 20, Personnel Bylaws. As I said a little while ago, Evan's working on a comprehensive update to that. We just did a few things, corrected some typographical errors basically, and deleted some duplicate text. But we didn't want to go through and do a lot with this because we're anticipating a more comprehensive update.
Okay, questions on 20? Article 21.
21, the Historic District and Historic District Commission. There wasn't much to be done here other than typographical errors, an obsolete sentence about initial formation of the commission, severability clause, updated posting requirements as we did throughout the bylaws. Nothing that really affects the way the Historic District works or the way the commission works.
Okay, questions on 21? Let's do Article 22 and 29 together.
Yes, Article 22, the use of Silver Lake, Article 29, use of Lake Ripple. They were so similar, and you can read in the committee report, the appendix to the committee report goes through these two by section by section to compare them, and you'll see how nearly identical they were. So we combined them into one. Thanks. And give Greg the credit for actually doing that work.
Okay, any questions on 22 and 29? Okay, Article 23.
Article 23 was hardly even merits a warrant article because we just We just updated the section labels on it. They were just number 1, number 2, and for consistency with other bylaws, because we added the word section in front of it.
Well, after 42, you won't have to worry about that.
All right. Questions on 23? Article 24.
Article 24, the scenic roads regulations. There's a lot of, a number of tweaks there, but sort of the more significant areas that we updated there. We updated some procedural things like authorizing the planning board to establish a filing fee, which they actually have, but was never officially authorized by bylaw. Authorizing the applicant to request an extension of time. Required the board's decision to be filed with select board, town clerk, tree warden. We added what's on the planning business we call a constructive approval clause, which is if the planning board does not issue a decision within a certain number of days after you filed your application is considered to be automatically approved. It's sort of it ensures that the board actually gets the work done and issues a decision on a timely manner. It's common with other permits the planning board and the zoning board work with. I keep scrolling past my notes here. We added a clause to explain appeal procedures, and the major thing we added to this was enforcement procedures. With my planning board hat on, the planning and representing the views of the planning board, we were often annoyed by the lack of any procedures for enforcing the scenic road bylaw. So that's probably the most significant addition we've made. Here is we added a whole section spelling out how do you enforce this. I won't go into detail trying to describe that. If you have questions about it, I'll be glad to answer them, of course.
Okay, are there questions on Article 24? Okay, Article 25.
Article 25, the wetlands bylaw. This is from one perspective, it was kind of a curious thing. In terms of the substance of the wetlands protection bylaw, the only thing that needed to be updated was posting requirements for hearing notices, meeting notices, and notices of hearings on regulations. And we updated those posting requirements to be consistent with everything else we did to basically refer to the local newspaper and the town website. But the curious part about this is that somehow or other a variety of editing errors had crept into the official copy of the bylaw. So most of the changes that we've marked out here are changes to bring the text of the official bylaw into alignment with the bylaw as town meeting had previously voted and approved it. So there are things like the word aquacultural somehow got transformed into agricultural. So you see in a couple places agricultural and agricultural, when one of those agricultures was actually supposed to be aquaculture. And there was some redundant text put in there, some stuff that got dropped in the wrong place. So we've listed as corrections everything that you see in the official published copy of the bylaw that doesn't currently align with what town meeting says the bylaw was supposed to say. So it looks like more of a change than it really is, but that one took me some time to work on, to align the text with what it was supposed to be.
Okay, any questions on Article 25? Article 26.
26, licenses and permits of delinquent taxpayers. This mainly was just revised to align with the current state law that governs this. By and large, this article is, the state law pretty much tells us exactly how this bylaw should be written. But this bylaw had not been updated to keep up with some of the changes in state law.
Okay, any questions on 26? 27.
27, it's a big article, but there's very little that we actually changed in there. Mainly we clarified, it talks about a public hearing on adopting regulations, but it doesn't say anything about, it doesn't say enough about how that hearing needs to be advertised as a public notice. So that's really the only substantive thing we've done there, aside from removing the severability clause, which we've done wherever it appears.
Okay, questions on 27? I think we'll take one more tonight. Article 28A. Probably one of the biggest changes we have.
Yeah, Article 28A formally, well, the current bylaw simply, it simply has an age requirement for retirement of the fire chief, which is inconsistent with state law. So we're revising that to be consistent with state law. We're adding a section about the strong chief provisions, which we adopted a year or two ago. Right? And we've added a section on lockbox bylaw. The fire chief would like to see, wanted to see this bylaw where, you know, basically every commercial building or multi-family building, it excludes residences, single-family residences, but they want to have a lockbox there so that the fire department is assured of being able to get into the building should they have to get in to fight a fire.
And this was the chief provided us a sample, and we found some other samples around other ones in the area, and we made a combined bylaw that we think covers all the needs there. So any questions on 28A?
Just one thought that popped in my head. It's not a question. It's just a point of information that you probably didn't really want to know, or don't feel it's important to know. But Article 28, you mentioned that it was deleted. So it was 20 years ago. The last bylaw committee deleted the Article 28. I don't.
It was a much earlier one.
It didn't delete 28. It deleted something earlier in the numbering sequence, renumbered everything up through 28, but left 28A as 28A. But that happened 20 years ago.
Yeah. Okay.
And with that, we've already covered 29.
Yeah. So I think at this point it is about 9 o'clock. We have some more things to cover tonight. Any objections to continuing the review till tomorrow? Tomorrow we have 6 articles from TA, Finance, and Select Board, and then the remainder of the 12 bylaw articles.
Sounds reasonable.
Okay. I would entertain a motion to continue the public hearing till tomorrow at 7 p.m. in conference room F.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Seeing none, a vote by roll call. Kyle?
Aye.
Angelina?
Aye.
Nick?
Aye.
Heather?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Greg votes aye. Victoria?
Aye.
Skip?
Yep.
I declare the motion carried.
And with that, I think I would accept a motion from the bylaw committee to adjourn the bylaw committee's meeting.
So moved.
Moved and seconded that the bylaw committee meeting be adjourned. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Declared motion carried unanimously. Thank you. See you tomorrow night.
Okay.
Since I'm already planted here, I'll.
Yep. All right.
I'll
Next item on our agenda, recommendations for the reviewed town meeting warrant articles. As Evan requested earlier, unless there is some objection, we'll write some combined recommendations on number 1 through 45 and go for those, because we're hoping to vote those all together. Is that good with everybody?
It's an easy write. You guys better pass all this stuff. Well, it's going to be difficult to write anything much longer than that.
Yeah. Unless, is anyone really looking to write that one? No, I will take a shot at that. Okay.
Yeah, you're basically just, it's housekeeping and aligning yourself with
Yeah,
state law.
we got rid of a bunch of stuff that we could have taken out a long time ago. We took out stuff that we didn't have to put in
Over
because
20
you have
years
to
worth
follow
of-
it anyways.
Housekeeping.
Okay.
We could work on assigning the other ones out.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm just getting to that place in the.
yeah,
Alright.
just, and the only thing that we really have to get any more input on is the CPA one and getting it from the library folks.
So we have Article 46 and 47, which are the MBTA overlay district. Anyone want to take those? Those should be fairly simple. It's complying with state law.
Well,
I could take those, Greg.
Okay. All right. 48 is the North Grafton Transit Village Overlay District, adding the sub-district and updating some terminology. I think we might want to hold off on this one until we hear back from that one. Actually, can we?
I don't even really know if we're gonna. Would we want to do like a Passover and just say that at this time we haven't heard back from the state? Or
Actually,
we
haven't
support the
even-
passage of this, but we may not be able to act on it because we're still waiting for a letter from the state.
And actually, we haven't voted to support anything yet.
Right,
so-
but
or even for 46 and 47.
yeah,
Let's do a vote on those.
Well, yeah. What happens if something comes in?
Well,
tonight that
let's
we want-
start with the ones we know about. I'd entertain a motion to support Article 46 as written.
So moved.
That's the
Second.
first part of the MBTA. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, vote by roll call. Kyle,
Aye.
Angelina,
Aye.
Nick,
Aye.
Heather,
Aye.
Dan.
Aye.
Greg votes aye. Victoria.
Aye.
Skip.
Aye.
Okay, declared motion carried. Entertain a motion to accept Article 40, to recommend passage of Article 47 as written.
So moved. Second.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, seeing none. Kyle,
Aye.
Angelina,
Aye.
Nick,
Aye.
Heather,
Aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Greg, votes aye. Victoria?
Aye.
Skip?
Aye.
Declare the motion carried. Article 49 is the adding the seasonal outdoor consumption. Do we
I'll
recommend
do
this?
that.
Okay, do we have a motion to recommend passage of Article 49 as written?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. Kyle,
Aye.
Angelina,
Aye.
Nick,
Aye.
Heather,
Aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Greg votes aye. Victoria?
Aye.
Skip?
Aye.
Declare the motion carried. And Skip is going to write that one. Article 50, updating marijuana language. I entertain a motion to recommend passage of Article 50 as written.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Seeing none, proceed to a vote. Kyle,
Aye.
Angelina,
Aye.
Nick,
Aye.
Heather,
Aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Greg votes aye. Victoria?
Aye.
Skip?
Aye.
I declare the motion carried. Do we have someone that wants to write that one?
Yeah, it's fine. I'll take that one.
Okay. All right, entertain a motion to support passage of Article 51 as written.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. Kyle,
Aye.
Angelina,
Aye.
Nick,
Aye.
Heather,
Aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Greg votes aye. Victoria,
Aye.
Skip,
Aye.
declare the motion carried. I can take that one.
Oh, okay.
Article 52, the adding tractor trailer definition. I assume there's no opposition to that one. Entertain a motion to support passage of Article 52 as written.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. Kyle,
Aye.
Angelina,
Aye.
Nick,
Aye.
Heather,
Aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Greg votes aye. Victoria,
Aye.
Skip.
I'll abstain.
Okay, declare the motion carried 701.
Too controversial for you?
No. I will volunteer to write the blurb because I want to read it and understand what it actually
Okay.
is.
All right, next article is Article 54, CPC. Do we need to talk about this one at all?
This is, oh,
This is the one where they're going to add language about where the other funding is coming from.
yeah, this is the one we need more information to be able to write the blurb, but
Yeah.
I support doing it.
Okay.
The damn cupola has been a problem ever since I've been attending town meetings back into 1970s.
Okay.
Been leaking.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
I would entertain a motion to support passage of Article 54 as written with the understanding that the other funding sources will be listed as part of description.
And as well as the overall total for the
Yeah.
cost. Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. Kyle,
Aye.
Angelina,
Aye.
Nick,
Aye.
Heather,
Aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Greg votes aye. Victoria,
Aye.
Skip.
Me, yeah, aye.
All right. Declare the motion carried unanimously. Anyone want to write that?
I'll volunteer for
Okay.
that one. I'll be nice and.
Article 55, repairing the roads and the cemeteries. I'd entertain a motion to
So moved.
accept the article as written.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. Kyle,
Aye.
Angelina,
Aye.
Nick,
Aye.
Heather,
Aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Greg votes aye. Victoria,
Aye.
Skip.
Aye.
All right, declare the motion carried. We have a volunteer for that one.
All right, the 51, 61, and 62. That's just moving money around.
Which one what was that?
I'll do 58. Right? That
We
was
never get there.
We're only
I'll do
doing
50. What are we doing?
55.
Yeah, I'll do 55, and then I'll do 61 and 62.
Okay, Article 61, sewer retained earnings. I entertain a motion to support passage as written.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
I have motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. Kyle,
Aye.
Angelina,
Aye.
Nick,
Aye.
Heather,
Aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Greg votes aye. Victoria,
Aye.
Skip,
Aye.
declare the motion carried. 62, entertain a motion to
So
recommend
moved.
passage of 62 as written. Second.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. Kyle,
Aye.
Angelina,
Aye.
Nick,
Aye.
Heather,
Aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Greg votes aye. Victoria,
Aye.
Skip,
Aye.
declare the motion carried unanimously. Entertain a motion to recommend passage of Article 63 as written.
So moved.
Seconding.
Do I, motion and a second. Do I have any discussion? Seeing none. Kyle,
Aye.
Angelina,
Aye.
Nick,
Aye.
Heather,
Aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Greg votes aye. Victoria,
Aye.
Skip,
Aye.
declare the motion carried unanimously. Do you have someone to write 63?
Yeah, I'll do that.
All right, and entertain a motion to recommend passage of Article 64 as written.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none. Kyle,
Aye.
Angelina,
Aye.
Nick,
Aye.
Heather,
Aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Greg votes aye. Victoria,
Aye.
Skip,
Aye.
Claire, the motion carried. Skip, can do that one too.
Yeah, I could.
Pretty much the
It's
same.
pretty easy to replace Waterville Circle with Drunkard's Terrace.
All right. So we did not do 48. I guess we'll come back to that one. See if we can get any more information on that. It's unlikely we'll have anything before tomorrow, but maybe something will come up and we can talk about that at the end of the meeting tomorrow. Okay, that covers item 2 on the agenda. Item 3, bills payable. So we have a bill from the Grafton News for publishing the legal notices for these meetings. Entertain a motion to pay,
So moved.
approve paying $89.23. Any discussion? Seeing none. Kyle,
Aye.
Angelina,
Aye.
Nick,
Aye.
Heather.
Aye.
Dan.
Aye.
Greg votes aye. Victoria.
Aye.
Skip.
Aye.
Claire, the motion carried. Okay. Item 4, meeting minutes from the August 22nd meeting. Entertain a motion to accept as written.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. Kyle,
Aye.
Angelina,
Aye.
Nick,
Aye.
Heather,
Aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Greg votes aye. Victoria,
Aye.
Skip,
Aye.
Claire, the motion carried unanimously. All right, last item on our agenda, attendance at the ATFC annual meeting on November 4th. So I am interested in attending that. Anyone else?
I am as well.
Okay,
I'll join you.
okay. So do we need a vote for approval of expenses for that, or you just,
No,
we'll pay for it
I
later?
won't have I don't have an invoice for you yet.
Okay, so we'll pay the invoice later. Okay, so we have three attending. So that was Kyle, Victoria, and myself. All right.
Just be nice, or else you'll have to pay for it yourself when the bill comes in.
Is anyone not here tonight that you wanna ask?
Just Mark.
Just Mark, is he probably won't.
If he's interested, we can add him as well. Okay, do we have any other business that may lawfully come before the board tonight?
When do we need to have the blurbs done by?
They need to be published October 9th. We'd like to
Oh,
have
okay.
them soon.
Tomorrow,
so we can approve
I mean-
them, if possible. We do have another meeting scheduled for Monday. Improve them then. Beyond that, we'd have to schedule another meeting to
Okay.
approve them.
Because I feel like I need to watch what she said again about 46 and 47 to
Okay.
write an intelligent sounding sentence about it. Because it kind of is confusing.
Okay.
We send them to you. Who we
Yeah.
we can send them to you.
So I collect the recommendations.
Yeah, we'll collect whatever we can tomorrow, and then we can finalize them on Monday as well, or another meeting if we can do another meeting if we need to.
Okay.
Well, we should be able to get this done for tomorrow night.
Yeah, I mean, worst case, we do a Zoom.
Or I can take a shot at it and you can tell me if I'm
Yeah.
just wrong.
We're your support staff. We're here to
Why did
correct
you
your
do that?
memory.
Okay. Seeing that we have completed all the items on our agenda and no one has anything else, I declare this meeting adjourned. See you all tomorrow night.